Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Tim Ballaret,
And I'm Karen Ballaret.
and we're EDGEucation, and we're here hosting with SoCal Filipinos our College 101 and what to consider during the college application and exploration process. So just a little bit about our organization and about us in general first. Both Karen and I are both first generation college graduates. And part of the reason we wanted to start this nonprofit was to help other first generation students, especially those in the Filipino community, to understand the college process, what that's all about, what they can do, and where they can look for guidance. And as a nonprofit, we're here to help offer those guidance, the opportunities to network, for mentoring, and just to get some ideas about how to approach life after high school, through college, and past and beyond into their careers. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of my journey and where I've gone through. I went to USC and graduated with my bachelor's in business. I went and became a financial stockbroker, did that for a few years, but realized that that wasn't what I really wanted to do in my life. I wasn't feeling fulfilled at that moment. So I changed directions and got into education. I became a coach and a teacher on the side during summer school, realized that's kind of where I wanted to be. So I went back to school and got my master's in education and have been a teacher ever since. So I've taught middle school, elementary school. I'm currently a high school teacher right now. And all throughout that as well, I've also dabbled in sports administration. I've worked with high school athletes. I was the athletic director at Santa Monica High School. So I've had a really kind of long and winding journey to eventually get where I wanted to be right now. But I think with guidance and mentorship, when I was in high school and in college, I think I could have found my way to where I am right now a little sooner. And we're hoping to give that opportunity to high school students today and through our nonprofit.
Thanks, Tim. Hey, everyone. A little bit about me. So as Tim mentioned, he went to USC. That's actually where we met. I'm from Hawaii originally, but a Navy brat also. So grew up all around the world. Went to high school in Hawaii, went to USC for undergrad, where I started off as a pre-pharmacy major. Failed my classes. Me and chemistry did not get along. So it really was... it was a challenge for me after I left my pre-pharmacy program to figure out what was next. So I ended up graduating from USC with my bachelor's in psychology. I'm thinking I maybe was going to be a therapist or a counselor or something along those lines. I moved to Boston after undergrad to do my master's at Boston College in higher education administration. I lived out on the East Coast for a little bit. Then I moved back to LA in 2007 to start a doctoral program back at USC again. So in 2010, I got my Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership. So my career spans 16 years, mostly working at USC, UCLA, and most recently at UC Santa Barbara. So like Tim was mentioning, education, it really came about, with us thinking about the middle school and high school students that Tim works with, and then me, working with college students and kind of just getting a sense of what challenges they were experiencing, what were some of the things that, we wish college students knew ahead of time. So it was a lot of just scribbling down ideas, and we had the big Post-it paper up on the walls. And then back in 2019, we officially incorporated as a nonprofit. So we are really excited to be here today with SoCal Filipinos. We'll be talking about the college exploration process and the application process, also with two of our amazing presenters. So real quick, just to let you know how we're going to flow today. So we've got our presentation split up into two parts. So the first half of our presentation, we'll be talking more generally about, if you're early in the college exploration process, or if you have kids or family members who are early in the process, what are some of the things to start thinking about early on. Then in the second half, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the nitty-gritty of the application. And our two expert presenters today definitely have a lot of tips to share. And at the end of our presentation, we'll just share a little bit about how else education can be a resource for the community and for some upcoming events that we have coming up. So I'm going to kick it over to our presenters, Leland and Ashley. So Ashley, let's start with you. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Mendoza. I am a daughter of immigrants born and raised in Ewa Beach, Oahu in Hawaii. And I went to a really big, large public school, and I was able to work really closely with my high school counselor in getting into college because I had no idea what I was doing. I was able to go to Whittier College here in Southern California, and I majored in social work and graduated with a bachelor's in liberal arts with a concentration in social work. And then I worked a couple years and figured out that I loved working with college students. And so I was able to go to Cal State University Fullerton, where I received my Master's of Science in Higher Education. I worked more on the student affairs side at first after receiving my master's, and then now I work at a small private liberal arts school, Soka University, in the Office of Admissions. And so helping high school students really know what it's like to explore different colleges, what to look for, how to apply. That's very much in my area right now. And one of the most, I would say, meaningful things about this process of what I do is just really thinking back to my college exploration journey. I remember speaking with my parents saying, hey, I really want to go to the mainland for college. And, they smiled and they asked me if I wanted anything to eat because I think they didn't know how to react because that was not as common back home with my family and friends to go to the mainland for college. But one of the most important things that I remember is my mom telling me, I don't know how to help you, but I want to. I want to help you. I just don't know how. And that meant so much because she just wanted to at least be involved. She wanted to at least be in the conversations. And so that motivated me to be like, okay, I need to go get some help. And that's why I went to visit my high school college counselor, who had a very small office trying to help with 500 graduating seniors. And I saw her every day. Just asking her, hey, how do I fill out this application? When do I need to turn this in? What are they asking of me? How do I write these essays? What is going on? All of that. And so she was very much a pivotal role model in my college going journey. And so I think because I was able to just go out and get that help, my parents were able to see me like, okay, like I got this, but at the same time, they were still very much involved. I'm like, okay, where are you gonna go? Are you sure you don't want to stay home in Hawaii and we can bring you food in the dorms, or you can come do laundry in the weekends, all that stuff, because it's all a family affair. Going to college is very much a family decision. And this is why we're also here to really help with that discussion, to really figure out what would that look like for you and or for your student on going to college, whether it is in a local area or going out of state. And so that's just a little bit about me and my journey. And I'm just really happy to just be a resource for everyone here and show that there's many different pathways of how your student or yourself can really achieve whatever goal that might be. And if college is a part of it, we're more than happy to have those conversations to help you out along the way. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm muting myself. This is a new platform. Apologies. So I'll go next. Good evening, everyone. Hello. My name is Leland Simpliciano, born and raised San Jose, California. And since this is a Filipino community, in regards to family legacy in Ilocos Norte, Luwag City, shout outs to the community over there. First generation college graduate and community college grown. Transferred over to the University of California, Irvine. And my first semester, I was on academic probation. So that was pretty much like a wake-up call. And in regards to like introductions, one of the main challenges that I wanted to share, like that is like valid and real, are like many things such as culture shock. So I mean, as much as it may be simple from moving from Northern California to Southern California, it is a lot of things. Whether it may be like being away from family, being in a different environment, and even just like the culture of the college. So like coming from like a community college where it's like, oh, everyone's at their own pace. With the University of California, so you're rocking, you're messing with the best, and everyone is very just like ready to go. Even the juniors there that came in as a freshman, sophomore, they already like know how things go about. So then just like, okay, I gotta get things done in two years. It's just very overwhelming. The community college, they probably had about like maybe like that I went to, it probably had like 30 organizations, but when it came to UC Irvine, there was like 600. So there was just like a lot of me that I had to like learn about, and I'm just even thinking like, okay, like am I good enough to like be here and everything? Going to a community college to a 4-year is pricey. So and especially being away from home and everything. So just thinking like, oh, can I afford these, and like those everyday decisions, responsibilities as well, because I was familiar like helping my parents and everything, but now it's just like moving away. It's just like, oh, it's all on me now. Skill sets and socializing, because once again, like I was kind of just like doing the work and everything. Being first generation graduate, like there's no like, okay, I need to learn how to public speak, I need to mentor and network and everything. It was kind of just like, oh, getting the grades, and those are kind of things that like I wish I knew, so I would be like more prepared when it came to like college and everything. But I mean, everything happens for a reason, and for me that was like my wake up call, and also like purpose, because I mean, being in that space was very unique and special to like my other friends that weren't able to like go to college, in regards to like the content that I was able to like learn, the people that I was able to meet. So education is right and a privilege, and knowing that, I wanted to like give back, pay it forward, believing in servant leadership. And my main focus is when I was at UC Irvine, or even just graduating, I wanted to work in higher education, doing equitable outreach and retention work. Working with first generation low income students, and doing other side projects as well. So UC Irvine has about 5 Filipino organizations. So I was a Filipino staff advisor, being a student organization, and then thinking that like, okay, well, these students have, they go through a lot and everything. And if they need someone to connect with, then I could be that staff advisor. So like things like that. And then also being an admissions reader as well, because I was really interested in regards to like the process. I got a thought from the chat. That is right. Other things. So yeah, I was working at UC Irvine from 2013, and after graduating, started working at UC Irvine. Once again, I wanted to pursue in higher education, so I pursued my master's at Cal State Long Beach, counseling, student development, higher education. My ultimate goal was to go back to the community setting, because that's where it'll happen. Especially affordable access to higher education was just like that. That's what really just like felt like, oh, that's where I was from. That's the community that I wanted to serve. But I was doing that at Cal State Long Beach. After graduating in 2016, I returned to the community college as an adjunct counselor coordinator, working in multiple community colleges all over the LA, Orange County, holding down multiple roles, whether it may be working with first year experienced students, extended opportunity programs and services, athletics, the Asian Pacific Student Services, and a lot of things. But the current roles that I hold right now is the Guided Pathways Coordinator and Adjunct Counselor Rep at Los Angeles Harvard College, and pursuing my doctoral at Morgan State University.
Okay, let's start this off talking about campus size. And so the next few factors that we're going to talk about is just kind of what to look for in your college journey. Some situations might where you might have to think about these factors is when you might go to a college fair, whether it's a virtual one or a physical in-person college fair, and there's a bunch of different colleges there ready to talk to you about how great their psychology program is, right? There might be even a college representative such as myself visiting your high school or your student's high school, talking about their institution as well. And so these are some scenarios where you would be thinking about factors such as campus size being one of them, And this is how we're going to just kind of guide you along the way of what to think about. And so when I worked at Cal State Fullerton, there was a student population of 38,000 students. Okay, so really large campus, something to think about. What that looks like in the classroom might vary, right? You might have a large lecture class, of 300, 100, 200 students, or you might have some smaller classes between 25 to 30 students. And I really point this out because that is where I encourage students to really focus on in terms of what kind of campus size that they would like to thrive in, because it all starts in the classroom as well. Because one of the main goals to go to college is to get that degree, right? So I encourage students to really think about, what is their learning style like? Do they like the lecture classes? Do they like the hands-on, intimate conversations, right? So that's just one of the things I tell students to think about in terms of campus size and what kind of community they want to immerse themselves into. Do they like that big, large community where they want to meet as many people as they want? Or do they like the smaller campus size where maybe it's a little bit more that fits their comfort zone and maybe their social skills at the time as well, right? And what they want to grow in. So an example of that would be private colleges, one of them being Whittier College, where I attended. At the time, it was 1,300 students compared to the 38,000. 1,300 students was pretty small, or considered as a small school. At Soka University, where I currently work at, it's even smaller, 450 students. And so that is also something to consider, because your classes might be as small as 5 people. Would you like that for yourself? Do you like more of that intimate one-on-one conversations with your peers and your faculty? And so this is where I just kind of talk through what campus size could look like for you in terms of fit and what you're looking for in yourself. And so thinking about the incoming first-year students, how many are there? Again, on a bigger campus, there might be thousands of them. Smaller campus, there might be maybe 200 or 300, or maybe as small as 100 students for an incoming first-year class. Again, this is all about your experience of what you think would be fitting for you and what's going to lead you to be successful in your goals of achieving that degree, and also how you would want to achieve that degree and what kind of support system you want to have as well in terms of your peers, right? And so those are just kind of some things to think about in terms of a larger campus or a smaller campus, especially when you are getting to know all these different campuses from these college reps, or even looking on the website. What does a big campus size look like for you in terms of your support system and maybe some networking opportunities? And what would a smaller campus look like for you, whether it's opportunities to help you to grow, or maybe some limitations as well? Maybe they might not have enough resources that you think that you would want for you throughout your college journey. Leland, what does it look like for community college and UCs? Oh, you're muted. I know. It happens to me.
Thank you. It all varies. So, and yeah, it really depends on like the school that you go to. So let's go with an example of like community college. My experience being in the Bay Area, I remember there was a really close school to me, which was like Evergreen Valley College, and then there was one that was just like more publicized, promoted in regards to like higher rankings, transfer rates, and there was a strong contrast between the two. Evergreen Valley College, it was local. It was probably like maybe like 10 minutes away from me. But it was a very small campus, like about like 10,000. And I think that's how community college get that reputation of like, oh, it's only a commuter college. It's a commuter school. Because reason why a lot of people are kind of just like straight to business in regards to you get a lot of demographics. So you get a lot of high school students that are like going into it, and they're kind of just like, you know what, I'm just trying to get my life together and everything. And I'm also trying to work and whatnot. And then also you also have like adult learners and everything. So that's how Evergreen Valley College was like in regards to just like mainly like being like kind of like that commuter school. And then with De Anza, they were like maybe 30,000 students at a community college. And they really kind of just like prep students for that transfer culture. That's why they had like a significantly high transfer rate. In regards to UCs, they are generally about the same size. Yeah, they're about the same size. But I think what's a really like huge difference is basically the location, which we'll get to next. In regards to like, okay, how's the environment? In regards to like, oh, is it active? Is it going? Is it lively? Or is it very like, or is there a curfew, like lights out at 10 o'clock or anything? But then like when you're in Berkeley or like UCLA, you're living that city life. So there's a lot of things like happening and everything. Location, yes. So going off of location, so in regards to like how far is the college from home, that is crucial because that influences your everyday decisions in regards to like even just the simple thing about like just like boarding, because like in regards to like rent and everything, that's what maybe like 2,000 a month and everything. Versus if you're living at home, then you save so much money. And then also just like going back to your social support. So those are a lot of pros and cons. But then let's say if you're not in if your family's like not very like supportive of your education or you're just like too distracted and everything, then that's why it's really important to kind of like have that experience. For me personally, I was never able to travel abroad or anything, but the small experience of just like moving from Northern California to Southern California, living alone, was still an experience in itself. And yeah, I'm grateful for it and everything. So that's like one of like the things that you need to consider about in regards to like, oh, is this close to home? How far is it close to home and everything? Another thing is the whole entire like rural, urban, and suburban setting. So in regards to like thinking like what's the best environment for you? Because I mean, we always think about like, oh, we're like, what's our best study environment? Do we like to study in a very quiet, isolated area? Do we know ourselves like, oh, I know I could easily get distracted, so I need to be more in a quiet place? Or there's like other people who like kind of like enjoy like studying in a coffee shop or anything, and they kind of like enjoy that urban city. So that's why people can like go to like NYU, Berkeley, and all that stuff. And then other things are just like suburban. So kind of just like that familiarity. So you're not too distracted with like all the differences that are happening. And then what is the area surrounding the campus like? So yeah, once again, kind of like UC Davis, like it has that reputation of like being a town, but I mean, it has its other cool like unique experiences as well. People can like comfortably bike there safely, as opposed to like other places where it's just like, oh, I'm afraid like I'll get hurt and everything. And then, or even just like, yeah, going back to the city life of UC Berkeley or UCLA and everything. For me, I went to UC Irvine, so it kind of interesting enough had a small town feel. And what was cool is that it was just very proximal to like other things. So I mean, it's just like, okay, I'm going to have I'm going to put in my time of like my studies and everything, and then I'm not too far away from the beach, or I'm not too far away from Disneyland, LA, or San Diego. It's traffic, but still, it's still closer from like being in Northern California and everything. And then even just like the weather as well. So I think the big experience or comparisons, I mean, I know NorCal has like a colder weather. Southern California has like more a warm weather and everything. But yeah, once again, it's just understanding like your body and also just like your experiences. A lot of people, they like the Northwest as much as like it's really like cold and rainy, but it kind of humbles people in regards to saying like, okay, there's nothing to do. It's cold outside. We're snowed in. I'm just going to study. So there you go.
I love the PNW. I'm one of those people probably. I love it. And you're right, UC Davis does have a lot of bikes. It's considered as a college town. No, I agree. Those are so many good factors to consider, especially like you said, if you're thinking of living at home, think about what does that campus look like as a commuter student. Are you comfortable considering what parking will look like on campus if you're planning on driving on your own, or do they have like a ride share, whether you can carpool with others, or even taking public transportation? What will that look like, and how will that work for you? And if it'll work for your 8 a.m. class, right? So some things to think about as a commuter student living on campus. Other things to think about for me, I didn't have a car for my first 3 years of college, and I was grateful that Whittier College wasn't so much of a college town campus, but at least I could walk to the nearest Rite Aid so that I can get like my toiletries if I ran out. It was something simple enough to either walk to Rite Aid or walk to the bank nearby, because they had that little small town or Old Town Whittier nearby. So that was feasible for me because I didn't have a car. Other things to think about as well is, food is really important. When you talk about UCI, there's so many different food like restaurants, like Blaze Pizzas on campus, everything like that. Smaller campuses, private schools, especially mine, we have probably like one coffee shop that's boba, but that's it. If you're looking for some Carl's Jr. on your campus, or a great sandwich place or panini place on campus where you do not have to go off campus to get food, that's something to also consider in terms of location and the surrounding area of the campus is like. So Weather is definitely important, like you shared. Some people like the challenge of like, oh yeah, I could tackle snow. I could do it. I personally couldn't, but I was able to visit some campuses of what it's like. Some University of Minnesota. I got to walk their campus, and they have a lot of snow. They do have a snowy season, but what was interesting was that they have a lot of different tunnels from building to building, so you didn't even have to step outside for your next class. So I thought that was pretty cool. So a lot of it really is just doing your research on what the campus location looks like, the physical being of it all too, if you are trying to take on that challenge of experiencing a whole different climate, or I would say if you want to go to the Midwest, something different from where you grew up, that's something to also look into and consider as well. Awesome. Great question. We'll talk about touring campuses. I love that question. So let's talk about academic reputation. And so when you go to college, or when you're looking at different colleges, I should say, one of the main points that representatives will talk about is a whole list of majors, right? All of these different areas of studies that you can focus your degree on. What do you want to study? They would ask you that. I think the important part when you're thinking of a major is the second half of what do you want to do with that major, right? What do you want to do with that? How would you want to apply it? Instead of, oh, I want to study this and stop there, think about how you want to apply that as well. So that is something to think about. A lot of the bigger campuses will have a whole list of different majors to choose from. There might be on smaller campuses a more limited selection, or it might just be one, which is liberal arts. It might just be a liberal arts major, and that's it. And so that's also something to look at as far as a big or small campus. On a bigger or I would say all your campuses, you do have a professor that is your instructor who will be teaching your classes. And when I go back to encouraging you to think about how do you learn, this is also something to consider. Do you want your professor to know you by name and face? Or do you like that big lecture hall, like you just go in, learn what you need to learn, and that's it? Or do you want to develop that relationship with your professor in hopes of maybe getting a really good letter of recommendation for grad school or for a job, right? And so that's something to also think about in terms of where do you want to attend for college, and how would you want your academic journey to look like, right? And so some things to think about in terms of what do you want to major in, how would you want to apply it, and who teaches your courses, your professors, but how do you want those interactions to look like? Do you want a faculty mentor? And you do have that opportunity at a big Cal State university, or even at a small private college as well. There are those opportunities. They do have office hours. It's a matter of you taking advantage of that and really creating that rapport and that relationship with them. As far as academic reputation, something to think about. If you were to go to a college fair and go up to a university and say, how is your psychology program? Or how's your biology major? They're going to tell you it's good. They're going to tell you, oh yeah, it's great. Our psychology program, great. Our pre-med program is great. Our political science major, great. They're going to tell you it's all really great. But what you want to really think about is, again, how do you want to learn those subjects? How do you want to learn those areas of study? Do you want an academic program that's going to have more hands-on type of experiences for you? Or do you want an academic program that's going to be more research-based? What is it that you want to learn, and how do you want to learn it? I would say those are the main things. So I would say look into whatever big name colleges that you want to look into, but I would say also look into other colleges that might not be as big of a name, but will still have the resources and academic programs you need that might fit you. So I would say definitely look at both for sure.
All right, and the next we have is campus community. And then just to address, I see some comments or questions on the chat, and we'll do that. We'll answer them at the first half. But right now, in the meantime, we're just gonna finish this flow. So campus community, that is important because once again, I mentioned the entire fact about me going to a club or going to a school where I had like 30 organizations, and then going to a school where there's like 600. And I mean, the general recommendation is just always explore, always find yourself. I remember my first community college teacher. He told me this TED talk worthy of a quote of like, you could be anyone who you want to be. It's just a matter of which you want to be. So it's like, oh, do I want to be the one playing like video games all day, or do I want to be like that social butterfly and whatnot? And yeah, that was like my goal. I was just like really like trying out things that I was like interested, whether it may be just like going into like environmental science or like criminology, the nursing route, sports psychology. And then, yeah, it's just all a matter of like through trial and error that really helped me. And again, like I'm very fortunate that UC Irvine had a strong like Filipino community in regards to like finding my sense of self. Same goes to like with leadership opportunities as well. I know people will say like, oh yeah, all the leaders go to like UCLA and like UC Berkeley and everything because it's like the best and the best. But I mean, that's not necessarily the case. There's like different like skill sets. There's different leadership styles, and then also just like other opportunities for like others to grow. So again, me, I remember just being very like extremely shy, introverted. But in regards to like the opportunity, the space at UC Irvine, there are not a lot of things that like happened yet. So one of my first gigs was helping develop the Student Outreach and Retention Center. That didn't happen at that happened at other schools, but not at UC Irvine. So it was like an opportunity for me, a calling and purpose of like, okay, let's make this happen. And I was just really grateful for that experience because I met a lot of people, friends, just out long-lasting like relationships, and then also just learning a lot of things outside like the traditional higher education experience I would get at like going to school. So that's what was really cool for me. Career development. And also just like college culture. Well, in regards to career development, yeah, it's also based on like surrounding as well. With UC Irvine, it was really close to a lot of gamer schools, whether maybe I believe like EA or even just like Blizzard. And that's what helps people, or that's what helped set up people for like success, especially doing computer science and everything. There's just like a lot of like small niche pride in it. Like random fact, the person that created like the www came from UC Irvine, creator of Guitar Hero. So once again, like there's all these like subculture popular things that are not really like promoted out loud, but it was a really cool like fact to know. And then just being like, okay, not only that I'm in a good school, but in regards to like school or even just internship opportunities, it's like in my backyard. So that's an important thing to think about. Like think about like where you want to set up in regards to like having your job, and then thinking about if there are any like internship job opportunities. Other things, so in regards to like college culture, in regards to like the busyness, is it very like small town, or is it like is it small town like, or is it a city culture where it's like the city that never sleeps? And then the residential campus and then commuter friendly. So once again, do you want an active school, or do you just really want to just like focus and stay locked in regards to like your studies and everything?
Okay, so cost. One of the, I would say, concerns when looking for colleges, right? And so in a very simple layout, when you're looking at cost, you're looking at your cost of attendance. And for, I would say, a typical what's included in your cost of attendance would be tuition and room and board. I would say that would be probably your two main points to start off first. And so tuition is the price for your instruction, by the school, the college, the university. It's just anything academic related. That is what tuition is, what tuition stands for, I would say. And then room and board, that would be your cost of your, if you're living on campus, so your cost of housing and your meal plan. And so that is what room and board would entail. Sometimes it would also include, some of the student services or amenities as well, depending on the different colleges that you are looking into. So for example, at Soka, where I'm working at right now, for room and board, it does include your resident hall room, so your housing and your meal plan, but it also includes laundry. I always talk about laundry. It's kind of a big deal because back in when I went to Whittier, we had to load this card with credit to swipe through the washing machines, and if I was 25 cents short, I either had to like go back to the machine to reload a card, or I'm asking people, like going room to room, being like, hey, like, do you have $1.75 on your card? I gotta go dry my clothes, something like that. But for Soka, we don't charge anything additional for students to do their laundry, something simple as that. A little might go a long way. Another thing that's included for them is printing. most of the time, I think some professors are including like electronic papers to be submitted, but if you do have to print something, that's also included in our room and board. So those are some little price to kind of just look into what the college will offer in room and board as well. Other things to consider when you are looking at cost of attendance, right? What will it cost to attend this college for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, right? And so health insurance is one of them. Could your student or could yourself still stay on your parents' insurance, or is this something that you also need to purchase from the school if needed, right? Some schools have their own insurance that you could also get as well. Books and supplies is a big one, right? Textbooks can be expensive. I think we have been really resourceful in getting used books and or maybe sharing some textbooks with friends if they want to split the cost, or being really strategic in getting those books from the library as well. So there are ways to get the readings that you need, but it is something to kind of take into consideration when you're looking at cost. Transportation, we kind of talked about that a little bit. What will it take for you to get to campus and or stay on campus if you're living on campus? Parking permit was a big one for me to consider during my undergrad and grad school. Sometimes it went up to $180 per semester for a parking permit to park on campus. And even then, I had to also be strategic of when I can get to campus so that I could get parking versus parking at the very back lot or something like that, or keep circling around to pray for a spot. I prayed a lot. I did pray for parking a lot on campus, but that's also something to consider: parking permits and or public transportation or ride share, anything like that. And then personal expenses, right? Whether it is, additional fees, whether you want to take part in any kind of campus life activities, if you want to join that dance club, because us Filipinos can dance and you got to get this new costume for your performance, anything like that. Sometimes the clubs have enough funds to provide that for you, or maybe you want to add a little something that might be a personal expense for you, right? And so those are just some things to think about. Anything that would really help you fund your, I would say, cost of attendance to help you be successful, and to also whatever would make it easy for you to get through to graduation, right? And so those are just some examples of what to really think about. And so, of course, a big thing to really take advantage of is financial aid, right? And so looking into what kind of financial aid opportunities the university or institution would offer for you. I know FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, that is open right now. That is a huge opportunity for you to take advantage of that, but also look into some named scholarships, some outside scholarships. It's out there. Donors are willing to donate some funds to have a named scholarship. Take advantage of it. And this is where, like I said, some of those letters of recommendations from either professors or teachers right now could really help you get some of those scholarships as well. And so grants, you do not need to pay back. Scholarships, you don't need to pay back. There might be some I would say, status that you need to maintain to continue to receive those scholarships. So one of them being like a minimum GPA. You might need to be in good academic standing in college to continue to receive that scholarship that you've earned for the next 4 or 5 years. There's also loans. I want to be very transparent with loans. I had loans, that's one of the things that I really wish I knew more about going into college, but also knowing that it is just still an investment in your education, right? No matter what, we're going to have some kind of loan, whether it's for a car or a house or whatnot, or a trip. This is just for your education. This is something to be mindful of. And I just want you as a student or for your student to really be comfortable in talking with the financial aid offices of the campus, because they are also taking some time to talk with students who may not be applying just yet, but they want them to be financial literate. They want them to understand, what will this look like for you to attend this university, and this is what grants might look like, or scholarships and or loans, so that they fully know what they are going to be investing into, right? So that's what I tell my students right now, like, talk with the financial aid officers. They want to have this conversation with you and be transparent on what this could look like in terms of affording your cost of attendance at that university. Anything that you want to add, Leland?
Yeah, finance is important because, and then also just like knowing the difference between these. I mean, whereas like, oh, I have a scholarship, I have loans, subsidized, unsubsidized, when you need to pay them and everything. Because yeah, and in regards to like being a first generation college student, it's really hard to know the difference, or it's something you kind of just want to like brush under the rug. It's like, oh, why can't I be normal? I just want to be like the rest and just like go to college and everything. So yeah, honestly, that's just a very like hard conversation to be had, but really important, especially early on. So thinking like, oh, maybe community college is the best route for me, because yeah, there's still there's quality education in community college where you get a good bang for your buck. In regards to like being able to trial and error at a more cheaper, affordable price, especially with like the College Promise Grant happening, taking some college exploration class and then knowing like, okay, this is what I really want to do, as opposed to thinking about like, maybe, yeah, you hear stories about people like graduating and they're just like unsure about their major or their degree. So they switch majors, and then therefore that's another year of like degree, or that's another year of like education and like loans and everything. So that's important. So to recap things, so once again, five main things to consider about campus size. In regards to, do you like to be like surrounded by like large community with all these resources, or just like keeping it low and simple, having intimate conversations, whether maybe like with faculty and students. Number two is just like the location. So location goes with a lot of ways. In regards to like the lifestyle, do you like fast paced? Do you like it slow paced? The type of like the weather, in regards to, do you operate best during like sunny days during the heat, or like do you like to be humbled in the cold? Or even just like proximity. So you want to be close to your family, or do you really want to spread your wings and try to be somewhere different? In regards to academics, thinking about the type of major there is. So, I mean, yeah, major over like reputation. Reputation is great, but then like if you really know what you want to do, then by all means pursue it. And I mean, there's that whole entire like networking thing, and that like professors can connect you with like other people, so you could pursue your career, pursue further your education. What else? The community as well. The saying goes, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. So thinking about like what kind of community, what kind of resources, how do you want to prepare yourself for like your next step in regards to like career, and then also like the cost as well, because yeah, money is important.
All right, thank you so much. So that's the first part of our presentation right now. We're going to go through a couple of questions first. There's some questions that we saw in the chat that we want to get through, and then we're going to dive right back into the actual college application process. So we had a question here about how important is it to tour college campuses before actually applying?
I'm going to say very. If you have the opportunity to take some time to tour the college campus. I know it looks a little different right now in this pandemic we're still navigating, but colleges are opening up for tours again. It's an easier way for you to really visualize. Do you see yourself on campus? I've heard some students who said, on the college tour, I just felt like this was it. This was my college home, right? And so touring the campus, if you have an opportunity, I would say do it. Come with questions. Be prepared with questions. Don't be like me, being fascinated by the squirrels, because Hawaii didn't have squirrels. I was all over the place with that. I'm like, oh my God, there's a squirrel. Anyways, I know I was like the dog from Up. If you cannot get physically onto a campus, some colleges are also doing this virtual information session. At least get connected through that. They might have their tour guides, like mine. I have my tour guides trying to give a tour through Zoom, even if it's them walking around the campus with their phone. So they do have some virtual options as well if you cannot physically get onto the campus. But I would say getting connected with the admissions office in some way, or the recruitment office for some bigger campuses, would show your demonstrated interest into that university.
I agree. In regards to like vision or just taking campus tours, because in regards to like positive imagery, you really have to like see it to believe it and actually like experience it. You might like, your parents like might tell you like, oh yeah, go here. It's like very like prestigious and everything. But then like when you're there for the actual experience, it's just like, oh, are you really vibing the place, or was it just kind of just like recommended, or what you see like on TV? Another thing is there are organizations. So again, I helped with student-initiated outreach, and that was really cool, because it was kind of just like more of a student-to-student experience. Because usually there are like your general tours that they'll say like generic information, important, cool, generic information. But then if you're trying to be like intentional of like, oh, how was my experience as a Filipino-American? Like I mentioned the whole entire thing of like imposter syndrome and in regards to like self-doubt and everything. But then when there was Filipino college students kind of like just doing outreach, they're kind of like sharing their experience in regards to like, oh, this is how I felt like isolated. There's no one I could really connect and relate to. I felt like what's the saying, like a small fish in a big pond and everything. So like it kind of just like validates that experience. Like, okay, there's a community here for me, and I'm glad that that's there.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on to that. Like, I think it's definitely really important to tour college campus, especially when you really want to go to. I remember when I went to go tour USC, and I spent, I did the whole. You spend the night there with an upperclassman, and just kind of get that whole college experience. I think it really helps to form what that vision is of what you're going to be like on campus and what campus is going to be like. They talked about the environment and the community and all of that. Really being and immersing yourself into that by actually being on campus can really help make that decision a lot easier, whether it's you feel that's the place you really want to go, or maybe this is not where I want to be. Maybe I'm feeling a little too overwhelmed by, being in this big city or being in a smaller town or being on a smaller campus. So really take that time to really understand the campus itself, because you are going to be there for anywhere from 2 to 4 years. So if it's somewhere that you're going to be moving to and living there, it's a really good idea to really get out there and understand what it's going to be like. So we have a couple more questions here, talking about checking the box for Filipino as an ethnicity. Now that they're checking a box for Asian, is it better for acceptance or more challenging in the UC system, where Asians make up the majority? So
let's kick that over to Leland real quick, because you've got some in-depth experience with the UC application.
Yeah, for sure. For the most part, that is kind of just like that demographics question is just like strictly there for like demographics and understanding like, oh, who are the students that are like applying and everything. Race, ethnicity is not considered. Generally, the main points, what they strictly stick to is, are you completing your, and then also this is a little bit different because there's a high school application and then the college application. So I'm trying to generalize it. Like high school, there's like your A through G, and then community college, there's your GE courses. So it's like, do you have the coursework that's needed through the A through G? So that's like kind of like your English, your math, your science, your English, math, science, social science, foreign language. And then also, are you hitting your 60 units? Are you hitting your major prep? Do you have a good GPA? And then what's your extracurricular activities? And then also, what is your, and then how are your personal insight questions like? But no, because in regards to like what Prop 209, yeah, it's not considered. Yeah.
I think the only thing, the only thing to add to that, I would say, I guess in terms of private California schools, for the most part, it's not a one-factor decision-making process. Everything that Leland already went over in terms of, your essays, your course requirements, all of that, anything that you need to submit for that application process is what they will evaluate. Checking off Filipino or Asian is very much just for demographic information.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think of anything else to add. Oh, when you asked the touring college campus, I thought about the movie All the Boys I've Loved Before. The third one?
Yeah, I just watched the third one recently.
Okay, so yeah, if you watch that movie, you see how it was a huge impact of like why she went touring to another to another campus. Try not to give a spoiler, but yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I'm just like, yeah,
right.
Okay, but yeah.
I think we're getting some more college application specific questions. So I think let's get into the college application presentation part first. So hopefully some of these questions will be answered, and at the end, we'll circle back to these questions. There are a lot of great questions about the application process, and I think some of it will get answered in the next part of our presentation. So let's move forward and talking about submitting a strong college application now. If you get the presentation back on. There we go.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. Am I taking the lead now? I was like, that's okay. Okay, awesome. So yeah, so we are, shifting the conversation from, what factors to consider when you're choosing what colleges to apply to, and now we're going into what will it look like to actually apply. And so the next key points that we are going to talk about, we're going to go over them from a standpoint as you are applying as a first-time freshman. So this means that you're applying to a college straight from either from high school, or you are applying, knowing that you will enter that college as a first-year student, as a first-time freshman. Okay, so there is a lot of many different pathways to talk about, the transfer process, especially. There are those conversations, but for now, just to kind of frame the next few slides, this is just where we're going to come from. And then we'll hopefully answer some questions to kind of hone in on what you might be looking for in terms of applying. So we will be talking about transcripts, how universities will be looking at transcripts, test scores, again, letters of recommendations for some of the institutional systems. Not all of them will require recommendations, but we'll still touch upon that. And then some qualitative factors like extracurricular activities as well. Okay, so let's start with transcripts. We want to talk about this because we know that in this pandemic, some students had to do some remote learning, online learning. We had to shift quickly. A lot of the high schools really had to, what is that word that everyone used during the pandemic? Pivot. We had to pivot a lot, right? And I love it because I love Friends, the TV show, and I'm like, yes, pivot. Anyways, how will incomplete grades due to the pandemic be evaluated? And so as a reader in our private school, we do evaluate first what Leland already mentioned, A through G courses, which means that those are your California graduating or classes that you need to graduate from your high school, right? How many English classes you need to take, math, science, and so forth. And so we still need to look at, did the student take those courses in order to receive their diploma or GED? And so if we see that there are some incomplete grades, we kind of look a little bit closer what happened, whether it was the pandemic related, or if, at a smaller school, we look a little bit deeper in what happened with the school. Like, some schools might shut down and students had to transfer to a different school, or did a student just kind of, did they have an injury that year due to a sport and then they had to pivot and take another different class or anything like that? So we kind of look a little bit more into it from a private school standpoint and look at the bigger picture of what happened with this incomplete grade. We also look at the credit pass, no pass. It will suffice, but it also will depend on the college that you are applying to. So really look at their policies on that. There are a lot of different links that we will share at the end of this presentation of where you can look at, from whether it's a CSU system, UC, or whatnot, how will they be evaluating grades and what that would look like for you. So anything would be, I would say, go to the school's website, because some of them might be doing their own thing. Even though it's a CSU system, each campus might be evaluating on their own pace, but they do have that outlined for you. So there's a little bit of research that you need to do in your end. Is there a minimum GPA to be admitted? Again, that will go from campus to campus. 2.0 might be one of them, a common one that I do see. And there might be some campuses where there might not be a minimum GPA. However, there might be a GPA for a specific major that you want to apply to. For example, I think kinesiology was a popular one at Cal State Fullerton, and it was impacted. And so some students might need to have, additional documents for the application, and or maybe a higher or more competitive GPA to even be considered. And so that's just something to think about. At bigger campuses, there might be impacted majors. So doing some research on what that looks like for you or for your student is going to take a little bit longer to really navigate how your transcript will be looked at. Leland, anything you want to add?
No, that's pretty much solid. Good job.
Thank you.
Cool. So I got SAT and ACT testing. So as of right now, recently, these testing, these testings are suspended. So they're not really considered into the application process. However, like there's still some outliers in regards to like other schools that might accept them and consider them. But for the most part, UCs, CSUs, they don't. So I would just recommend in regards to like focusing, having your students like just focus on like other things. So once again, protecting that GPA. Again, I was just like reading through the comments, someone mentioning about a credit score. Yeah, that is your credit score. Keep it high, because if it's low, then it's that first impression. It's like, oh, okay, then we'll check the next thing. And then if that momentum doesn't build, then it doesn't look so great. So once again, with the SATs, ACTs, I would just recommend your kids, or even just like yourself, just working on that GPA. Personal statements, we'll probably get more about that later. Extra co-curricular activities.
So letters of recommendation, we bring this up just because there might be some campuses that do require letters of recommendations for your application process. CSU, Cal State University is not so much, but again, there might be some other programs that you might be applying to or scholarships that might include that. So really look into what is needed for that process. At the private colleges, at my private institution, we do ask for at least 2 letters of recommendations, and it looks really good if it's at least one of them being an academic letter of recommendation, so from a teacher. If a student asks a teacher who could really advocate on behalf of them, that looks really good, especially on behalf of their academic skill set in the classroom and out of the classroom as well. And even if it's a teacher that they only knew from an online class that they had to take in the last school year, at least, if they really did build a good rapport with that teacher can still write a really great letter of recommendation saying that your student or you yourself was very independent in their studies. They did not slack off even in an online environment. They were still very much engaged. There's still a lot of great things that you yourself or your student can be recognized and acknowledged for, even from an online class, right, during the pandemic. And so letters of recommendations, I would say, will add to your application because it might add a different character, or it might even point out a lot more of your accomplishments and achievements that you may not have been able to voice yourself throughout your application. Because sometimes it's a little hard, right? If someone were to ask you, hey, Ashley, introduce yourself and like all of your accomplishments, I'd be like, I paid rent on the first. I took care of myself. I don't know. Like you kind of freeze, and it's like, oh man, like what's my wins folder? Like what are my life wins, and how could I even speak about that on behalf of myself? And so that's where letters of recommendations really do come into play, and where your teacher or your counselor, club advisor, or even a volunteer supervisor, or even your supervisor from employment, or even athletic coach, they could all speak on behalf of you from a different standpoint and just add more value to your application. And so even if it's not, a requirement for your college application, I would say ask a few people for a recommendation anyway, in case you might need it for a scholarship application as well. And that's also really good for you. All right.
And then in regards to involvements beyond the classroom, yeah, that's important. Even just like going back to the personal statements, there's going to be scholarship opportunities where they're going to ask for like personal statements. And personal statements, some of the scholarship questions are very similar to like the personal statements. So you could kind of just like copy and paste and kind of just like make those adjustments as needed. I don't know the exact data, but there's been sayings about like, yeah, there's millions of scholarships that have been unused or unapplied for. So you might as well kind of just like have that experience. And as Ashley mentioned, in regards to like that self-reflection of like, oh, what have I been doing in my life? Or even just like, who am I connecting with? And that's the whole entire like building your interpersonal skills, your networking in regards to like, oh, am I comfortable like asking this person for that? And then also just like moving forward of like, okay, when I apply for like these jobs and everything, I'm going to have to like ask for this person. So I really need to build like a strong rapport with this faculty, with this teacher, with this coach and everything. And once again, yeah, that's helpful because it gives you like that sense of direction. Because I remember I was just like kind of like checklisting things of like, okay, I got the grades. I did sports for like 2 years, but it wasn't just like personal, even just like for me. In regards to involvements for the classroom, so it's all different like based on the schools. So with the CSUs, they don't really ask that. However, it's always case by case. So like if you're probably going for like the more high impacted questions, they're going to ask for information. So like maybe like if you apply for like the nursing program, or if you're going to apply for the like arts program or whatnot, or yeah, the arts program, they're probably going to like ask for like supplemental information in regards to like, oh, can you show us a portfolio? Can you write us this statement and everything? things like that. With the UCs, yeah, that is one of like the multiple factors that they do consider in regards to like the activities, the awards, and then also that helps complement with the personal insight questions. There's going to be about 8. You're going to have 8 choices up, and then you have to pick 4 of those insight questions. And once again, it's really important for you to like write about yourself, because another flaw that a lot of readers have observed is like they write on behalf of others. So then they talk about like, oh, the hardships of like their dad or their grandparents and like how they're doing that. But no, they want to see like what you're doing. What are you contributing, and how are you like crafting your skills? And then private colleges, I mean, for the most part, very similar to UCs. But Ashley, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, we understand that your list of extracurricular activities looks very different than the pandemic. It might have been difficult to stay involved while distancing, right? And so if you took on some pandemic projects, whether it was banana bread, I think that was one of them, or sourdough bread, we want to hear about it, or even family responsibilities. Do you pick up younger siblings after school, or do you help with a family member who might need a little bit more assistance with their health or anything like that? We look at all of that because it's a commitment outside of your classes. And so that's what we look at, a structured commitment outside of your classes. So think beyond your clubs and organizations, volunteer, any faith-based, involvements as well. Some students have even put cat sitting for their neighbor. We considered it, it was a commitment. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 hours in the afternoon, and the cat sat for their neighbor. I'm like, that we look at all of that. And so we not only look at the variety or what your interests are, we look at the time commitment. We look at your whole story of what the circumstances were, and really look at, oh man, like this student was really juggling a lot in their junior year or whatnot, right? And so this is just another way of us to get to know you more and what you're interested in doing. Big slide. Okay, so I'm kind of looking at the questions as well to see if I could like answer some of them in my
Presentation.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one. So CSU, so Cal State University. So in the Cal State system, I would say we would always probably just say this throughout the presentation, really look at their websites, really look at what they're requiring, what they're looking at. It's a safe bet to say that course requirements is what they're going to look at. Did you complete all the A through G requirements in your high school years? Did you get earn your high school diploma or GED? So that is a safe bet. And look at all the other maybe multi-factors that they are kind of considering in their evaluation process. And so looking at one of the questions, it says in the CSU applications, will my son get a better chance of being accepted if we choose undecided as his academic program? And so I don't think I could say that they'll get a better chance of being accepted, but I could say that when I worked at Fullerton, it wasn't a ding on their application. It wasn't like a negative or a con to be undecided. If anything, undecided was the biggest major coming into, I guess, first year students in orientation. And so even though it's not a major, it was the biggest one. I can't say it's going to be a better chance or not, just because they do have a different system of how they evaluate their applications. But I will say that it's not going to be a negative point or anything like that if they do come in as undecided. What I will say is that because their application is very detailed, there's a lot of drop-down menus or whatnot. Be really mindful of what you're selecting. I only share this just because my family friend, she didn't get admitted and didn't know why. It's because she accidentally clicked that she's applying for spring 2022 or anything like that, and automatically it, because she put spring semester, it categorized her as a transfer student. And so it automatically denied her because she kind of clicked something a little bit wrong there. So you go through an appeals process, and she got that cleared up. But I would say in terms of how your application process will be for the CSU system, it is a little bit more detailed, a little bit more plug and play, but undecided is one of the bigger, I would say, majors you would see at a bigger campus too. Anything that you've experienced, Leland, for CSU campus?
Yeah, I guess like two tricks. I guess I would say tricks. One is the what is it called? So there again, every campus is different. But one kind of like systemic thing across the CSUs is the local preference admission consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it gives you kind of just like slight favor of like if you're applying to like to local college, because there's always that great story of like, oh, born and raised, born and raised like locally developed and everything, and then just like making a story out of that. And then also just like again, like it's the campus that's giving back to the community. So that is one thing to like consider. When you're in the community colleges, there's another thing called like the ADT, so Associate's Degree Transfer. And what that is basically is making sure that like you hit all these classes. You complete all these classes, the lower div, the upper div, at a timely manner with a solid GPA, and then it doesn't guarantee you to the CSU of your dreams, but a CSU of your choice. So that's one thing. Mm-hmm. And then, so if we're good with Cal State University, Cal State universities, they don't generally ask for as mentioned, they don't ask for the extracurricular activities or the personal statements, unless it's like the high over-impacted majors. Next is the University of California. So I briefly mentioned this before. Whether it may be the community college or high schools, there are certain types of like courses that needs to be completed. So in high school, the high school counselors will just like talk a lot about like the A through G. And then in the community college setting, it's like the general ed. So very similar in regards to like, do you have your English? Do you have your math course, your science, and etc. So it's really important. And then in regards to like minimum GPA, it's a holistic review. No guarantees. And like I believe the entry level is like 3.0 GPA, but you're going to also hear stories like, high school students like applying with like 4.5s and everything. Another important thing is the co-curricular activities. Reframing the word from like extracurricular to co-curricular. Co-curricular just like being just like a little bit more intentional. So like I remember for me, I was just like, if I just like stack my list, then it'll be impressive and everything. But then even like when I was like writing my personal statement, I was kind of like I was selling myself short, because I had a lot of breadth but not depth. So in regards to like, was I intentional in regards to like volunteering for like my track team? Or how was my experience like working at Jamba Juice? Or was I kind of just like checklisting of like, I have these leadership positions, but like, what did I learn from it? How am I contributing to society? Those are really important things in regards to like navigating of like, okay, what are the skill sets that I want to develop? Public speaking skills, time management, leadership, all those things. The UCs. So another important thing is the personal statement. They call it the personal insight questions. And there's going to be 8 types of questions, and you each choose like 4 of them. And I think for me, what did I believe? I guess I was able to get out of trouble by like me talking. And I think the fact that like, I didn't have a strong GPA, I didn't have good co-curricular activities, like I'll just woo them away from like this personal statement. That's not really. You really need a strong GPA and a really good co-curricular activities. And then like, the personal statement, the personal insight questions, like the afterthought and everything. Other similar tricks and tips to like as I mentioned with the Cal States, if you are a high school student, and then I believe it's called and you are the top 9% in your high school, there's this thing called the eligible in local context. So very similar to the CSUs, it will guarantee you a spot to a UC, not the UC of your choice, but it will guarantee you a spot if you're a top 9% in high school. When you go to community colleges, they have something known as TAG, which is Transfer Agreement Guarantee. And it all depends on the major. It all depends on the school. I believe all the UCs offer them except for Cal, UCLA, and San Diego. But once again, the overall things that you should really like consider protect is, I'll say this in community college So basically, making sure you get the right classes, making sure you have a strong GPA, co-curricular activities, and another policy for me is starting the personal statement late. Because I mean, the personal insight questions, they don't really change. So you could really write them a year in advance, or even just like talk to your English teachers of like, hey, I'm writing this. Can you help me edit it and everything? Because that's what a lot of students do. They procrastinate in regards like submitting things when things are due November 30th. I forgot exactly when, but there was one time when the system crashed and everyone like panicked and freaked out. You don't want to do that during like your Thanksgiving break. It's a Thanksgiving break. You enjoy it. You deserve it. yeah, so personal insight questions, again, be proactive with that, please.
And as far as private colleges and universities, they would look at, your application to the university, your transcripts, recommendations, essays, extracurricular activities, all of that. The one thing I do want to point out are the essays. Sometimes colleges will have a specific essay or essay prompts, I would say, that is very, very specific to their campus, to their college. They might say, why do you want to attend such and such school, right? And so, especially since private colleges in California, most of them are, private liberal arts colleges, we can tell that if a student used the same essay for all of those applications and just change the name, we can tell because it doesn't sound specific to our institution. There might be some essay prompts that ask, well, how do you resonate with the school's mission and values, or what do you see yourself using this liberal arts education for, and how do you want to pursue your goals with it, And we can tell, as a reader, we can tell that this probably wasn't really written for us, solely for us. It might have been also written somewhere else. We also have seen essays with the different college name that they applied to. I work at Soka University, and I've seen college essays written for Stanford and Pepperdine, which are also really great schools. They just submitted it to us, which is the wrong name, right? And so that is just something to really think about, especially with some of these private colleges, universities, if they have a specific essay question that you want, that they want our student applicants to answer. Really think about, again, going back to that intentionality. Why do you want to apply to that school? And I was definitely one of those trying to make sure that I got in everywhere. Like, don't, I'm not going to say not to worry about that, because you will, but just know that you have done everything you could to get yourself to where you are today, right? So really apply or go through these applications with intention, knowing that you have a lot of credit to everything that you've done, right? So those are just some of the things that I would point out in the private colleges, universities, especially since it really is this holistic process, to where there are some universities that talk about each applicant as well. They don't only just read it and evaluate it, they will sit around a table and talk about you, right? And so it is recognized of all the work that you put in, and they will talk about your essays. So really get it looked at. We can tell if it's written the night before, and we can tell if it's written for some other college as well, which we're still going to be reading for you, but we can tell it's not made for us. So just know that.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, thank you for adding that. One more thing I forgot to share was the California Community College. So I think this really is a hidden gem. Like, community college, open access. So in regards to like the GPA, co-curricular activities, personal statement, no, it's not needed. High school diploma or your GED, which is your general education diploma, and how you get that is like through testing, through like basic math, reasoning, and once again in regards to like the tuition. So like, what's one of the greatest gems is like the career exploration class, and students get to really not just like do what they're told to do, but they get to like self-explore, be exposed to like the different majors, careers. In high school, a lot of students are exposed to, or I think, yeah, the statistics about like in high school, students are only exposed to like 20% of like professions and careers. But then like when you take a career exploration class, it's like, oh no, there's more to it. And then also you're just kind of like understanding, learning about yourself in regards to like, oh, are you a very like extroverted person, or are you an introverted person? Are you more like hands-on, or are you like more creative in everything? And then, yeah, once you kind of like develop that skill set and just like have that real life experience, then yeah, you're good to go and you're ready to apply. But yeah, there's different conversations with the community colleges. I mean, I work in the community colleges. Maybe that's why I'm like a little slightly biased, and I'm also from there too. But yeah.
I'll really quickly just I think we're gonna share some links toward the end. So that's what those links are looking like. But this is just kind of a quick outline of what deadlines look like for different colleges or college systems. Private colleges, they might have something called the early action or early decision. For early action, that means that it's a different earlier deadline. So for us, it was November 1st. And if the student got admitted, great. It's non-binding for early action. So they have some time to still shop around and consider the choices. If you apply to a round that says early decision and they get admitted, then they are required to drop all of their other applications to the other campuses that they're applying to. So this is early decision is a round where students apply to if that's really their first choice college. Like, this is the college I want to get admitted to, and early decision is that. And so that's something to really look at when you're looking at private colleges. And then you see there the UC, CSU, November 30th. However, again, campus by campus, there might be some extended deadlines. So really look into those websites and see what is considered an extension, might be even going into December, whatnot. And then the beauty of community colleges, there is no deadline, but we still encourage students to apply early. Please apply early. The earlier the better, just because the main thing that you do want to focus on is just a really smooth transition from high school and going into college. And so getting that all straight away early, I would say, is just very much more valuable for you, right? And so this is, I think people can review this a little bit later, but I just want to also be mindful of time and answer some questions if that's okay. If we can go ahead and transition into that. Yeah. Oh yeah, and that slide too. Karen or Tim? Or we just, okay.
Yes, we're back.
All right, we're back.
We're back here. So I'm going to scroll back through some of these other questions that we want to try to get to. So we talked about the undecided question. There was another question about how will choosing a minor impact their child's education or future?
As far as the application process, I don't think much, but as far as their college journey, I see a minor as only adding to their I would say their I guess academic goals, if this is something that they want to pursue that will complement their major, or might just want to know more of. It might be something completely totally off. So I would say it just, again, goes back to that intentionality. Like, what do they want to do with it? So it's not so much of just choosing a major or choosing a minor. What will they want to do with that after? So I think that just kind of depends on your student as well.
Also, I would say that you don't have to, you or your student don't have to decide at the very beginning. I added my major in pretty late in the game. I was thinking about minoring in web design. This was back in the early 2000s when everyone was kind of starting to make their own blogs and Zanga and all of that stuff. And then, just a lot of times along the way, students will find classes that are interesting to them, and then find out, oh, if I just take enough, it ends up being most of the classes for the minor, and then they'll just add the rest in. So a lot of times it's more just for students who have a lot of different interests and are wanting to check out classes in different areas.
Okay. We have another question. I'm not sure if this is something we can answer, but we might have some insights into it about strategies or advice to give so that children can get the most money when attending college. I'm talking about 529 plans or financial aid. If we can speak to anything about that.
Okay, I'll go. I honestly just really refer back to the college's website and click on their financial aid office page, because they will also list what are the different grants, scholarships, opportunities that they either offer from their university or ones that they also recommend. Because the ones that we list on our website, he screens them first. He doesn't want to just put random websites. He screens like, oh, this is also a legit, website, third party scholarship or whatnot. So I would say going back to the school's website is where you could start first. There are also there's a Raise Me website where you can earn micro scholarships starting from your 9th grade, but I am not familiar with 529 plans, so I cannot speak to that.
Yeah, I would say with the 529 plans, definitely talk to your financial advisor. Those are some things that you can start adding into your plans for you have a 501k or 401k, sorry, or a 403b, depending on what your retirement plans are. you can also add the 529 plan as a part of that. Just speak with your financial advisor. They can talk more about how that can work and how much to put away each month and how long you would need to do that for, depending on, what your child's age is at that time. So definitely talk with a financial planner about that, and they can definitely have a lot more information for you regarding that. I know there was another question regarding scholarships as well. Where to find some of those scholarships. I know, Leland, you mentioned a lot of those scholarships going unused. There's a whole pot of money out there. Do we have any, links or any suggestions about how to find some of those scholarships?
Links. Well, hang on. Yeah, so I guess I'm still gravitating towards the first question. So I think the general recommendation is having your kid fill out, or having your kid or yourself fill out the FAFSA. That's always the initial one, and the deadline is always March 2nd. So make sure you submit it early because there's always priorities. Second one, in regards to the scholarships. Yeah, I was kind of just one, as Ashley mentioned, there's always the school ones. So those are always kind of just the more trusted ones, and then it kind of just branches out. So it's really a matter of kind of just doing some your own research. There is some trusted ones. I think the first one that I clicked on, there was you're the top 9, and I remember 2 of them. Actually, yeah, 2 of them were there when I was still in or when I was applying to college. So it's just okay, that's relatively trustworthy. I think the general advisement is I think there's some people that are just oh, I'll find you money and everything. No, it's better off kind of just doing your own research and everything. If they ask you to pay for it, then it's just no, I really wouldn't, because you're trying to get money, not give money. Yeah, the first thing that I see on Google, and again, FastWeb and scholarships.com, those were the ones that I looked into back when I was in college. Oh, I can't do the comments. Oh yeah, this is a new platform for me. But yeah, just Google it, check the resource. I remember when my mom was working at Bank of America, it was oh yeah, apply to this scholarship and everything. So yeah, there's scholarships everywhere. Ask your parents and see if oh, is their company offering any scholarships or whatnot. So
Leland, if you have any links, you can drop them in the private chat, and Jason will move them over to the comment section for folks.
Okay.
This is also definitely a spoiler alert for upcoming events that we have. I know that we asked a lot of Ashley and Leland in terms of tell us everything you know about thinking about college and applying to college and getting in to college. So we really appreciate the expertise that you've shared, but we know that, again, with all of this, the answer is always, it depends, right? So we definitely have plans for follow-up workshops where we'll be bringing in folks that work much more closely on the financial aid side of the house so that they can share information.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tim and I are the first to say that we definitely don't know everything about everything by far, but we know how to find the experts. We know who to ask. So
Mm-hmm.
We definitely want to make sure folks know that, this was definitely meant to be kind of just an intro and the tip of the iceberg for a lot of these topics, but there's definitely more to come.
Mm-hmm. There's one more question I kind of wanted to go back to up here about SCROC classes. Are you all familiar with that? Asking about how those fit into the CSU or UC applications.
To be honest, it's the first time I heard about that. I'm ready to preparing this class.
Okay.
We're writing it down.
We're writing that down. So some of the questions that we were not able to answer, we're definitely writing these questions down, and we'll definitely have more information, hopefully, and send it out to you all. I definitely recommend, visiting our website. Our information there is on the bottom if you also want to email us as well, or get in contact with us if you have more questions that come after this. So there's another question about any resources for adults that decide to go back to college.
What would be the first step? There's always campus reps. So sometimes you're just oh, okay, I want someone that kind of had that adult experience or had the transfer experience. Because then, yeah, I mean, everyone has different experiences. So I wouldn't relate to someone, to a campus rep that came straight as a freshman. I was just okay, I can't really relate to that. So it's really, yeah. So like, see if like you could like, if there's any like campus reps that could like talk about like that like adult experience. Because I think even especially the common trend, especially for adults, is in regards to kind of just like busy working, or just like, you know what, I don't have time for that social stuff. I just want to get educated. I need to get my degree, go to nursing and everything. So yeah, also just doing like, and I think what's also favorable towards a lot of adults is just kind of just like asking like, oh yeah, how are your online classes? How are your accelerated pace classes? Because yeah, usually it's a 16-week course, but you share things about like things going back to an 8 weeks. So really just like asking kind of just like their, what was it? The campus like outreach center, admissions, all that stuff. In regards to like, oh, you have a representative to like talk on behalf of like the adult learner experience and everything.
Yeah, when I worked at UC Santa Barbara, and I know a couple of the other UCs as well, a lot of schools are now starting centers for non-traditional students. And again, it's a lot of adults that decided to come back, so they don't necessarily have the same experience as, you know, the 18-year-old right out of high school. So again, reach out to us, please. You know, we've got our contact information here. So if there's anything that you think of, if there are questions that we didn't get to, or if there are things that we said that we would do a little bit more research on, definitely know that while Tim and I were off screen, we were jotting down a lot of these questions. So definitely the best way to follow up, especially because we don't know all of the folks that are on here on Facebook. Please follow us on our social media, sign up for our mailing list on our website, and we will definitely be sure to keep you posted on our upcoming events. Again, I talked about financial aid being another workshop. You know, we definitely also want to do events where we bring in our Filipino-American students who are currently in college to share their experiences. And then I know within the community, we also have a wealth of experienced professionals who can also share the different careers that they've jumped into. So, you know, we're really excited to be tapped into the SoCal Filipinos community. So I also want to say a thank you to Jason, who is on the back end, you know, connecting with him and kind of brainstorming what this could look like for the community was really exciting for us. And, you know, for the four of us, just again, being first generation college students and knowing, you know, there's so much that we didn't know, we really want to give back to the community and make sure that, you know, our high school students and our college students are seeing faces that look like them, as, you know, we are, you know, making sure that we are preparing the next generation. So we are really excited to be connected with the group. You know, through the SoCal Filipinos group, we have already gotten connected with other nonprofits in SoCal who are supporting Filipino-American college students. So we're really excited about that. And I think really for us to be able to connect with the community and to point people in the right direction. Like I said before, we definitely, you know, if we don't know the answers, we know where to find folks. So Ashley has been one of our biggest supporters, you know, since we launched EDGE in 2019. Leland doesn't know it yet, but now that we've tapped him for this, we're going to be, you know, asking him for some more of his expertise on, you know, everything that he has to offer as well. And we're really looking forward to getting to know more folks in the SoCal Filipinos community who can offer their insight and wisdom as well. So on behalf of Tim and I and EDGEucation, thank you to Ashley and Leland for joining us and for sharing all of this great info. Thank you to Jason and SoCal Filipinos, and hopefully we will see you all at the next event. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all. Thank you.